Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Here we are, another
Here we
hump
are.
day.
We're ready.
And
I'm ready.
you ready?
Yes, I'm set too.
Well, let's go. Oh my goodness. Welcome everybody and hope that your week is going extremely phenomenally well. We are here today to, I think, kind of pick up a little bit where we left off last week when we were talking about discovery calls and things of that nature, to really dig in a little bit deeper and to looking at how do you nurture your leads and work to increase those conversions. So those are the three tips that we're going to be focused on today. I think a lot of it, of course, is leveraging email automation sequences, looking at how do you rank and score your leads so you know what you're prioritizing and what to really focus on over a period of time. And then, personalizing your content and what kind of strategies you can come up with. So I think it's all about really building the relationships and the trust that are going to help you convert those conversations to actual clients faster, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you have on tap as our first tip for the day?
Well, I think the first tip kind of sets the stage for how you think about things. 'Cause a lot of times we talk about creating content that you can use in a variety of ways. And that's what you want to do as a small business or as a marketer. You want to start developing things that you can use down the road. You'll use them up front, but then you start to think, how can I use these, or how do these help me, either myself or anybody doing the sales role? So one thing I like to do is, we talked about the buyer's journey before, as someone starting to evaluate their possible vendors or partners or products or services that they're buying, as they start to talk to people, as they get into the comparison of cost. Like, the more you know about these stages, the more you start to think, as I'm talking to a prospective client, how, what are they thinking? What are they what are they worried about? What are they unsure about? So what I like to do is create, start thinking about what content I should be using along the sales journey. So for example, for myself, we have initial qualification call. It's a short 20-minute call to see if we're a good fit. Can I help them? Do they have the time and resources to dedicate to what we're trying to achieve? And so, prior to that call and after that call, there will be specific things that I know will help them understand what I do, how, if I can do what they need. So let's say before the qualification call, there might be a reminder that goes out and says, hey, looking forward to it. Here's just a quick, summary of the things that we do, or who we are, or our team. And then after the qualification call, I might send also automated, right? I might send something that says, hey, it was great talking to you. I think, I'm looking forward to preparing the proposal or presentation for you. Here's a case study I think will help you understand how this worked for someone else. So these are all things that will help, solidify your sales cycle. And those are things that also can be created and automated. So as you look at tools like HubSpot or other sales CRM tools, you can say, as someone moves through my sales funnel, I can automatically trigger certain actions. And of course, you can have it so it either automatically goes or it automatically queues it up, and then you review it and you tweak it and then you send it. That way you can add any other notes. But really think about those moments, those days in between when you talk to someone. There's a lot of concern. Things change so fast, right?
Yes.
Wait, I've
Yes.
heard people say that if you wait, if you go into the next week for a next call, sometimes it's a big shift because people have a weekend. They're like, just a lot can change in a weekend. So ideally you want to have some kind of process where you have your calls on Tuesday, and then by, Thursday you're having your presentation, and then, by Friday you're giving them everything they need to consider. But what you want to do is try to think about this journey they're going on for you, and then what could you create? Maybe you have a short video that says, hey, here's your web, where you can record their website. You can talk about what you see. I'm looking forward to this. I think your brand has great potential. I think there's messaging opportunities. Like, how many touch points can you create along the sales cycle to ensure higher conversion? Because let's be honest, getting the lead in the first place is the hardest part. So why not make that process, once you're talking to them, as just solid as it can be, right? So, when you look at that, so you want to think, awareness, consideration, decision. What do you have to support that conversation with this person? And, formats, it can be a blog post you wrote, it could be a white paper, a webinar, case study, a video, all of these things. And that's where you start to say, when you have your sales hat on, you're like, oh, it would be helpful to have a blog about, metrics and marketing to use here. And that's where you say, oh, I think I'm going to put that on the list of things to create. So it starts to work together: content, marketing, sales. How does it all support, itself? So that's kind of the first one. And I would encourage people, we like to have tips for or homework for some of these, like short, to-dos, but really find one stage of your sales cycle and in the buyer's journey that's most relevant to your audience. And then just think of 2 to 3 things that would really like sort of address a pain point for them, especially in that stage where they're trying to figure out, do I trust you? Is it risky to do business with you? Is it, energy and time? I don't want to waste that. So think about one stage and then one thing that you can provide to support that. And then you just grow it from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And while you were talking, I was thinking about, I've gotten into this routine after the discovery call. I send out a summary. And it's basically to make sure that we're on the same page, right, after that call, and to really, like give them a good overview of what I heard them say to be their needs and their goals and their timeline, their objectives for this particular project or whatever we're working on together.
Right.
And then it also gives me an opportunity to kind of highlight where I see us being a good fit and what, we can deliver versus what they're asking us for.
Yeah.
And putting it in writing also helps give them something to refer back to, because they could be talking to 2 or 3 different companies about the same services, right? So you want to kind of, along the way, position them, position yourself, to be the best fit, right? If they're in the process of talking to multiple different potential partners. But then also, I think over time, if you take a moment to look back over those summaries that you've sent to various clients, you can start to see patterns in, what were they saying their needs were.
Yeah, you should always be watching your recordings of your sales calls so you can improve. Yes.
Yeah. And so that really helps you. I follow this woman on LinkedIn, and her name is Samantha, and I can put her into the comment section after this segment because I've forgotten her last name, but you can also see her on LinkedIn by doing a hashtag SamSells, SALES, and it's her entire focus is helping companies get better at the sales process.
Nice.
And her tagline is "Show me you know me."
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for tip number 2, it's personalizing that sales communication, that outreach, right?
Mm-hmm.
By really showing that prospective client how well you understand them and how well you know them all along the journey, not just in, the initial conversation,
Mm-hmm.
but all the way through to the project completion, to retaining them as a customer for other
Right.
things down the road,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's not just about getting to know how many children they have or when their birthday is or what their favorite color is,
Mm-hmm.
but it's about, really show and demonstrate your expertise in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in uh, the understanding the company itself. Where are they in their life cycle as an organization? Are they just getting
Right.
started, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they need
Oh,
special
yeah.
things, or are they rebranding because they're 50 years old and, people aren't looking at them anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because they're considered stale or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really looking at that, and then also understanding what news, is being put out by the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Are they growing? Have they recently had a layoff? Has their reputation been damaged in some way, or did they receive an award recently for
Mm-hmm.
something? And are those moments or milestones, is what I like to call them, and triggers, going
Mm-hmm.
to help you understand, are they ready to talk about the solutions that I bring to the
Yeah.
table,
Because at the end of the day, I mean, we're all people, right? Like
Yeah,
humans, and we have our lives, and then we have our professional aspect. And a lot of what we do in business, it is for some personal reasons. It could be career growth so that you
yep,
can support your family. If you own a business, you want, so
yeah,
there is a very personal reason typically for all of this stuff that we do. Because the closer you understand that, you're right, the better I think you can have those conversations and really just, empathy and understand where somebody's coming from.
yeah, absolutely. And you want to show that you care all along the way, that you're going to be as invested in this
Mm-hmm.
process as you possibly can. So I don't know how to put anything in a chat on this because we've never done it before. So I have like a sample of an email that I created a long time ago to
Mm-hmm.
send out when Busy Boss was first getting started. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll add that into the comment section on
Okay.
LinkedIn afterwards so that everybody can take a look at it, because I think we struggle sometimes. We want to put a lot of information in the email,
Right.
especially those initial outreach emails.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to kind of demonstrate how you can be concise, but still show them that you know them, that you understand what's happening in their world. So I hope that that will be helpful.
Yeah. And I also find like with the personalization is that like I like to be upfront about the fact that I want a good story, a good case study, a good
Yep.
use case from my experience with this client. And I think what that shows is it's very honest, right?
Yeah.
It actually says I want to grow, I want to, have success, but it's also directly related to their success. So I think it's very powerful honest thing to say because because we're all skeptics, especially when we first start to meet people, anybody,
Yes.
anytime we're spending money or looking at that stuff. But when you start to realize that there's something to gain, I've had a
Yeah.
lot of clients and who are just, they have directly said to me, I want you to grow, I want to make sure you're doing good too, because you will continue to help us as long as your business is doing well and growing. Like, there's
Yeah.
been a few people that are so in tune to that. I have such respect when someone starts to talk like that. They're not trying to cut costs constantly because eventually I won't survive, right? And they know
Right.
that. And there's just such this, I don't know, it's respect. It's this business mindset. I really appreciate those type of partners.
And I think to your point, it elevates you to not to outside of that vendor,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
stereotype where it's all about how do I get the service for the lowest cost,
Yes.
to a true
Mhm.
partner
Mhm.
where there's this uh, deep understanding of the value that you bring that goes far
Mhm.
beyond what you are charging them for the service,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And you become that trusted partner with them, and they are willing to spend those additional dollars where they would try to negotiate that down with a vendor that
Right.
is going to be more of a transactional type of a relationship. So
Mhm.
you want to make sure that you're positioning yourself for the best outcome for you and for the client as well. So
Mhm.
homework on tip two, I think, would be just look at one of your prospective clients and do this homework. You know,
Mhm.
find out what's happening in the industry that they're in if that's not one that you're going to specialize in. um, see what the organization is putting out there. What are they
Mhm.
blogging about? What are they in the news about?
Mhm.
Um, have has any of their decision makers or their CEO been recently interviewed, and you can find, like, something on YouTube that you can listen to and use as a reference to refer
Yeah.
back to. Because if you're in a mid to larger size organization that you're targeting, they're not always aware of where their CEO being interviewed at certain
Mhm.
times, right? The person that you're dealing with in
Yeah.
the department that you're focused on. So you
Mhm.
start talking to them about that, and they're like, wow, I didn't even know that, he or
Mhm.
she was recently interviewed on CNN. And how about
Right.
that, that this person did? So really it sets
Yeah.
you apart, but it
Yeah.
helps them to understand that you've got your finger on the pulse of their
Yeah.
organization.
And I do
So
find CEO
look,
interviews often talk about like their larger strategic goals where they're shifting, forward. And that's something which I find to be is typically something where a person is aware of that, not necessarily sure what that strategy is going to look like quite yet. So that's a good one too. I think is when you can acknowledge this, but then also understand that they have a big task in front of them as they're shifting here. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So again, with the empathy, you relate that, things are in moving parts
yeah,
and pieces right now, and timing may not be right, right? So that's
right.
another thing with going back to the BANT that we talked about last week is what is the timeline for this, and knowing how you're going to have to nurture that
Yeah.
relationship all along the way.
For
Yeah.
sure. I like to see like if they're attending any events as well or part of any community initiatives or things like that. I think that,
Mhm.
especially for me at least, because that's very marketing centric. There's a lot of work
Yes.
that goes in prior to attending, but then afterwards, you hope that what you've done is paid off and you can have leads to nurture and things to go, and your sales team is happy. So a lot of pressure along that time too. So your timing is important because there's time where they cannot talk to you, but you can respect and understand the stress and the needs that are happening right then. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So definitely do the research as your homework, and then, look at playing around with how to create some intro emails and a sequence to keep nurturing them in case they don't respond to you,
Right.
the
Right.
first 5 times you reach out.
Mhm. Mhm. For sure.
So what about tip three?
So the tip three is an extension of what we just talked about, but it's really using some automation to make your life a little bit easier so you can probably spend more time doing some of the research you were talking about, maybe doing some calls, maybe doing some direct messaging, on LinkedIn or different things like that. But when you automate some of the core things that you have to say, it can really help you quite a bit. So, um, one thing is so HubSpot recently changed some of their pricing structure, but now you can get a single sales seat for $100 a month, and that's changed. That's used to have to get 5 seats, so it kind of puts as a small business, kind of put that little,
Wow.
threshold. But now it's much more easier for people to get in and start using the CRM features. And one specific one I want to talk about is sequences. And there's other names for it. I think, I'm sure Salesforce and other places have different maybe names for it. But sequence is a sequence of activities that automatically happens once you enroll a contact. So it's very cool. It's very nice, and it can be a couple weeks. It could be months. It could take the course of a whole year. You just have to plan out what you're going to do. And the sequence could be like, let's just run through an example sequence. So this would be somebody we're not talking to, or maybe someone you met at a conference or somewhere, but they're just not quite to the point where they actually want to talk to you or they need to talk to you. Maybe they don't really understand how you can help. So you can enroll this person in something, and maybe every 3 weeks, or maybe something that says, hey, it was great to meet you. I just want to give you a summary. If you want to grab coffee sometime or having a further chat, book me here, or let me know, what questions I'd love to hear, whatever. And so you go through, and then maybe, a certain time period later, you send them a second email and say, hey, I'd love to, add you to my newsletter, or I'd love to, I wanted to share this case study. I think it's really close to, what you're doing. And if you're niched, with your industry and your space, you should be able to find case studies you can send pretty much automatically. The third one could be a call. It could be go message. It could be a task for yourself, right? So it doesn't have to be another email. It can be call, give them a call, leave them a message, send them a message on LinkedIn, or connect if you haven't already. So you can start to weave in this email communication, these sales tactics, and these actual personal tactics. It could say, go research and send something, a news article, like whatever it is. And the cool thing about this is you can start to think about how you could have a second salesperson that can follow what you think is the best way to approach people. They can use these sequences from them, but you're already doing what you think is the right thing to do. So it really, really sets the stage for growth for yourself. And I really like, that idea of how can you use sequences for one thing. So, there's also, and the cool thing with sequences, if someone replies or someone clicks a link, they are opted out of the sequence. So they're not going to keep getting anything from you if they respond. They can also unsubscribe. So don't be afraid of the unsubscribe, right? It just means they don't want to talk to you, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
It's better to
maybe
know,
it's not the right person,
than to
maybe,
just keep, yeah.
maybe the titles are deceiving these days.
Mm-hmm.
You think that you're talking to the decision maker because of the title, and
Oh,
they have no interest in what you're trying to offer,
mm-hmm.
So when they unsubscribe, don't really take it personally, and don't,
Right.
give pause and say, the organization seems like they could benefit from what I have to offer, but maybe this just isn't the right person. Maybe I
Right.
need to go up or down the chain
Mm-hmm.
until I find the right one that is the decision maker for what I
Absolutely.
have to offer. Yeah.
No. And so that's a core of a sequence. And then I think as you start to get those, down pat, and they're comfortable, you can start to look at further, like automations and workflows. For example, let's say, you're in your third sequence of communication. You ask someone if they would be okay if you enrolled them in your newsletter. They respond and say yes. So you don't really have a sales conversation, but you do have conversation and sort of this approval to add them. Well, you can automatically say, put them into a different workflow. Maybe they're starting to get the newsletter and it's monthly. Maybe there's a second message, that says, I don't know, right? So maybe there's a second supporting message, and then you have more of a marketing and informational push, and then you have still the small sales push, or it's quarterly. Now, how's things going? Has much changed in your situation? Is there anything you'd love to share with what's going on in the industry? Like, you can start to really hone that. So putting those things together can really support you so that you can do more of the personal conversations. So really the key features of some of these CRMs is, automate it. Like when you meet someone, like for HubSpot, they have on the app, you can scan a business card, right? I can actually put someone in a sequence like right there if I wanted to, right? It's a little rude. I don't want to, do it right in front of them. Maybe you want to do it, scan them and then, go from there and put them all in the next day. But so, it lets you do those kind of things. It lets you sort of put people into categories. This actually is a lead. This is more of a opportunity, and you define what that means to yourself. So you start to do, those types of things. And I think, for homework for this, look at some CRMs, look at some free ones, look at what you want to do. Where are your priorities? Because I will say most of them, there's a few. I mean, the CRMs, they will mostly grow with you now. Their software as a service, they the monthly subscription until you get into higher level stuff. But, find something that's going to grow with you, but start putting your top needs, right? I need to send a monthly email. I need to categorize my people in one place so I can see them. And I need to be able to create landing pages, right? So just, check off the top things for you and make sure that's what your tool is doing for you. And then start thinking about a sequence, like put it on a Word document, right? Intro email. Hey, great to meet you. Like start to look at what that looks like in your timing, because that way when you have the tools, you can start just, putting them together and start enrolling people and make that a habit. Every Monday or Tuesday or whatever day of the week, I enroll people, right?
Yeah, you get them into the process. You're constantly like out there researching who else would be a potential good fit for me that looks like my ideal client persona, that I want to reach out to. So yeah, I think those are all good points. So it's really, understanding where they are in the journey that they're on, right? Personalizing that outreach to show them that you understand, and you're adding credibility along the way and that type of thing. You can leverage automation as much as you possibly can to help you, so that it's not all time consuming and overwhelming for you to really get on that marketing journey, that we all have to go on, because nobody's going to just run across our website, and kind of trip over us. We've got to get out there and really toot our own horn, which for some it's not a comfortable feeling to do that. But if you're going to be in business, you need to feel confident you bring value, and this is what you do. So
Agreed. And then once you really see that you've helped someone do a certain thing, it does sort of click that you're just telling how you help somebody and how you can help someone else. It really, to me, it starts to click when you start to really look at this, how success is defined by the people you work with. So.
Yep. And sales does not mean that you have to discount the heck out of your stuff in order to win the business, or that you have to say, buy it now, before we leave this call.
It's got to be right for both parties. So,
no high pressure, no, used car sales tactics from the old days, It's all about the relationships, building the trust, and the rest will happen naturally.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, sounds good. I guess until next week, right?
Yeah. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week and the weekend. And, if you are fortunate enough to have Monday off for the holiday, enjoy that as well. And
absolutely.
We will look forward to seeing you again soon.
Sounds good. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Take care.